And that means that we are no longer, sorry, I've got to do something. We are no longer, we are being carried by the horse rather than us directing operations. So don't know exactly how much Julia wants me to talk and how much you want to ask questions, but I'm going to, having introduced myself, I'm just having a look at my little notes here.
I thought, Helen, if you do your talking what you planned, if anybody has got a question, if they can put the hand up with using the reactions button, or pop a message in the chat, or if not, I'll keep flicking through the cameras and just wave your hands at me, and I'll
that'd be brilliant, because I'd love to have your questions and make it much more of a discussion. Just to throw those questions open a little bit more, I want you to think about your balance on a horse. There have been three main ways. One is your backward forward balance. That is whether you're sitting upright, or whether you're leaning forward, or whether you're leaning back. The second way is an up-down balance, and that would be whether you looked like you were very popped up off the horse and a bit apprehensive, a bit nervous. That often happens with people who are lacking confidence, or riding a horse that makes them feel less confident, rather than being very sort of grounded. So if you think of somebody, say, like, everybody knows what Jardin looks like on a horse. She looks like she's not moving much. She looks like she moves with the horse, and that's because her body balance is good, back to front and up down. But there's a third, if you like, layer of balance, which people who do dressage often get pulled into, but also those of us who will hack, because there's that left-right imbalance, what we would call your left-right asymmetry, and the same rules apply to horses. So horses, if you like, have a back-front balance, an up-down balance, and a side-side balance. So I'm sure you're all aware of your horse's ability to turn maybe left more easily than it turns right, or vice versa. Or maybe it has difficulty cantering with the right leg leading, but it canters left absolutely fine. Those are asymmetry challenges that a horse has, and those are things that we can work with much more effectively if we are working with our own asymmetry. So that's a little summary, but one thing I would also add, I suspect that all of us could put our hands up and go, yeah, I've had moments where I'm really not very confident about, it might be about riding whizzy horses, it might be about jumping, but at some point in your life you will have had confidence issues. Those of you who work with Julia know that Julia works really well with such things, but I work with a lot of people who have confidence challenges about different things, jumping, maybe hacking out, maybe cantering. And if you are flopping along on your horse really, really low tone, then it is much, much more difficult for you to stay with the movement of the horse. So, for instance, you're hacking along the road and the horse sees something in the hedge. What do? They jump sideways. If you've got your muscles organised in a way that holds you, then when the horse jumps sideways, you're more likely to stay with the horse as it goes. So just before I open the floor to questions, I'm just going to get you all to do a little exercise, if Julia thinks we're up for that.
Go for it, Helen.
Go for it. Okay. I can't see everybody now because Julia seems to have put me on the main screen. She's the lady who's in charge of all that stuff. But if you can sit in a way that you can, maybe if you're on a settee or a chair, just pull yourself forward to the front of the chair or the settee. So you're kind of sitting on the edge of it so you can feel your seat bones. Or if you're standing up, that's fine. You can stand up and do this. And what I want you to do is just to put your hand on your front, just below your belly button, and push it into your flesh. Okay? You can feel the muscles. And then I want you to think of clearing your throat or coughing. So I will be sort of going. Now, when you do that, what do you feel happening in your muscles? Does anybody want to? I know Julia's unmuted you, but hopefully you can feel, sorry, she's muted you. Maybe we can just briefly unmute you all.
If you want, if I'm going to say you can unmute if you want to.
Yeah, because it'd be really good to have your feedback at this point.
Mute.
Okay, and I know there's quite a few of you, but you know, either put your hand up and wave, or tell me what you feel when you put your hand below your belly button, push it in against your flesh. Go on, Mary, what do you feel?
I feel my core muscles operating.
Yeah. Okay, now if you put your finger and thumb either side of your spine, just above your waist level, and again, push those into your muscles, and then have another go at clearing your throat or coughing. What do you feel happening in those muscles? Any offers? Tighten. Somebody said tighten again. So you can feel those muscles. They might go more solid, might feel tighter, they might bulk out against your fingers, they might move out, they might move in. People do feel it in different ways, but basically you can feel something happening, I hope. Now the third thing to do is to put your hand between your ribs and the top of your pelvis in your sides. So I'm trying to do it here so you can see. Yeah. There, I've got my hands, okay. And have another go at coughing. Again, what do you feel? Any offers?
Feel your muscles tightening.
Yeah, and again, they might pull in, they might push out, but something happens. Okay, now your body, your brain and your body between them learned a long time ago that coughing is not effective, nor is blowing your nose, nor is doing a number 2 on the loo or producing a baby, or taking a lid off a tight lid off a jam jar, or even sweeping. Sweeping is something all horse riders do pretty much every day. So next time you're sweeping, have a feel. Your body will engage those core muscles. Blowing your nose doesn't work if you don't engage the core muscles. And what Mary Wanless discovered all those years ago is that good riding means that you need to engage your core muscles. Now, nowadays, people will say to you, engage your core. You know how to do that, that's brilliant. One of the ways to do it is to do what you've done now and then learn to hold those muscles without coughing. If you play a musical instrument, a wind instrument, or you sing, you will be familiar with diaphragmatic breathing. So one of the things that happens when people engage their core is they often can't breathe. But if you learn to breathe diaphragmatically, or like when you play a wind instrument, you can breathe and engage your core muscles. Good riding means you need to engage your core muscles. The great thing about it is that means that you are then able to match the forces of the horse. So as the horse, remember that experience where the horse suddenly accelerates and you weren't expecting it? You'll go backwards. Then, of course, if you're holding the reins, you unintentionally give the horse a jab in the mouth. If you're engaging your core, you're more likely to stay with that movement. Same if the horse suddenly stops. Think stop in front of a jump. If you've got your core muscles engaged, you're much less likely to end up going over its head or over its shoulder. Same trotting down the road and it suddenly spooks at an imaginary lion in the bushes. If you've got your core muscles engaged, you're much more likely to stay with that movement and not feel like you're about to fall off. And of course, those are, rescuing you, but in every transition, walk to stop, stop to walk, walk to canter, walk to trot, trot to canter, whatever, jump, they're all forces on your body, which if you're engaging your core, you will be able to match and stay with the movement better. Now, I know a lot of you do trek. I also do trek training with people as well as flat work and jumping. And learning to sit balanced on the horse is also important when you're riding the obstacles. You'll definitely get more marks if you're sitting correctly on the horse. So I've just done a quick rundown there about the main thing that makes a difference to your effectiveness on a horse is to engage your core. being able to stay with the horse means that you're going to feel more confident, and it's also going to mean that you're going to be more effective. So I could talk to you all night, but I'd love it if you asked me questions.
Helen, got a question from chat. How do you engage your core but stay relaxed to allow energy over the horse's back?
Okay. Classic. When you engage your core, your torso is not relaxed. Okay, you'll all have realised that from engaging. Hopefully you're sitting there engaging your core muscles now. But if you're engaging your core muscles, it means that your brain allows your arms and your lower legs to be free to ask the horse to do things. So those are your aids. If you haven't engaged your core muscles and something you need to apply aids, or there's a scary time happening, your body knows you have to hold on with something, and it'll end up either hanging on to the horse with the reins to balance yourself, or grabbing the horse with the lower leg. Now, if you've got a fairly steady horse, grabbing it with your lower leg might not be too much of a problem, because the horse just goes, oh yeah, it's all right, I'm not really bothered about going. But if you're riding a really goey, whizzy sort of beast, and you use your leg aid to hold on, the horse is going to think you're wanting it to go faster, isn't it? So the being relaxed on the horse is to do with being able to apply the aids and have that independent seat. Independent seat comes when you engage in your core, but you're still able to move. So for instance, if I get you to think again about engaging your core, but you can still lean sideways, you can still lean forward, you can wave your arms about, but everything doesn't join in if you let go. So if I let go of my core, everything joins in, but if I hold my core, my arms can move individually. So just have a little play at that. And the other thing, to finish that question, how does it allow the horse to move? When you engage your core and you also kind of hug the horse with your thighs, rather than letting your thighs just hang off, it means that you sit a lot stiller relative to the horse's movement, rather than wibbling and wobbling about. And that means, because there's less movement, you engage with the horse's muscles in a way that allows the horse to use its body correctly. So although it sounds impossible, if you were to sit on the horse tomorrow and engage your core and move less in the seat of your saddle, so your seat bones and your pelvis move less, then you will find that you will be able to feel the horse's movement more, and the horse is more likely to give you up through its back, reaching into the rein and travelling over the ground more effectively. Does that answer your question? Nobody's saying anything. We got another one.
Yes, thanks. Yeah.
I'm on mute. Yes, thank you, Helen. A big thumbs up. Yeah, lots of likes for that one. Anyone else got any questions? Hands up or okay.
Quite a few on the chat, isn't there?
Yeah, yes, my pelvis moves with my pony's movement. Is this okay?
Okay. Yes. Good question. I'm going to hopefully make you laugh at this point. When you move your seat bones, I was always, I don't know about you others on here, but I thought it was that I had to move my pelvis as much as the stride length of the horse. But it's a really good analogy to think of a 2-pin plug and a 2-pin plug socket. So think, I don't know, toothbrush or shaver. So if you imagine that your seat bones had 2 little extensions coming out of them, they came out through your bum flesh, down through the saddle, down into the horse's back, where there's a little 2-pin plug socket to receive them. Okay, so this is an analogy. Actually, there is a place where a lot of the muscles of the horse's back and its rib cage and its sides connect into the spine. I think it's round about, is it T5, something like that? I'm not very good at remembering those things. Now, if when you sit, you can imagine that instead of your seat bones moving several centimetres or several inches, they're only moving about 1/4 of an inch or 1/2 centimetre. So it's a very small movement in terms of distance. Then you are in effect getting your 2-pin plug plugged into the horse's 2-pin plug socket. That means relative to the horse, you're moving with it, because what you're actually moving with is the little bit of up, down in the horse's long back muscles, which you felt with your fingers in your back. When you coughed, that movement is like when the horse's back is engaging and lifting. So in the walk, there's a little bit of a lift, 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 lift. It's not a shove, 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 shove. So again, think of Charlotte, think of somebody who you know rides really well. They don't look as though they're moving. So the story about this is sometimes my husband and I driving past somebody and he goes, "Ooh, look at that, there's a real bum shunter." So you're not a bum shunter, you're not pushing and shoving, you're matching that little tiny movement in the horse's long back muscle, which is no more than 1/4 of an inch, 1/2 centimetre. It's not the length of the horse's stride. And again, when you plug in like that, the horse will lift its back. It's not a learned response, it's a reflex response. The horse cannot help but do that if you sit in that way. It's very powerful. Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
So you're all going to be sitting with less movement now, aren't you?
Yeah, that's fine. Thanks very much. Is this just that it's a pony and she can be quite flighty?
Okay.
So I know what you're talking about when they could jump 2 meters either side if they saw a bag or whatever. So I'm kind of always ready. And I suppose as well, since I was a brass player as well, I kind of have the core, and I touch wood, I very rarely come off her as well. So it's kind of, but I do kind of not compensate, but I allow her to move and I don't stop my body moving with her once it doesn't affect what we're actually doing.
Yeah. And it you know, if the horse is sort of going, if this is its feet, it's going 1 2 1 2 1 2, it's walking quite quickly. Your seat bones, if these are your seat bones, they're still going 1 2 1 2 1 2, but they're not going 1 2 1 2 1 2. It's not a big movement. It's a little
it's
quick
very
movement.
tiny. Yeah,
it's very tiny, very quick, but then you can stay plugged in. Yeah, because then you can influence it more.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. Thanks very much.
Brilliant. Good question.
Helen, I think you've answered it in your question. Somebody said my pelvis moves side to side. Okay, so
yeah, there is a little bit of side. Often we get more side going downhill because the horse is more active with its hindquarters, but you actually need to minimize the side.
Yeah.
Particularly if you're into, again, I hope you don't mind me telling you a funny story, but some of you will remember a lady called Anthea Kendrick. Anybody know Anthea? Well, she had a lovely little coloured cob. And he used to really walk out, power walk, but she wanted to get more marks for her walk. And he tended to swing from side to side. So he put his energy into a bit of a side rather than just a forward. And when he pooed, when he was out walking, he would do poo, 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 like that. You can imagine, because he's swinging his bum from side to side. Anyway, she rang me up a few weeks later after we worked on her moving less swing through the hips and more of a forward. The analogy she used was that instead of being like Marilyn Monroe, she had to be more like Kate Moss going down the catwalk. So again, that's a kind of really nice analogy. Anyway, she sent me a text a week or so later and said, "Yeah, we pooed in a straight line." I just thought, that was brilliant, because the horse is putting the power into projecting the legs forward and the body forward rather than swinging it from side to side. So you get the body effects from me here as well.
Yeah. I love the visualizations, Helen. They're so important because you can visualize the different models.
And one of the things I very much do, one of the things we're encouraged to do as coaches, because I go every year down to teach training, and I go on a course pretty much every year with Mary, and we work on our own skills. We work on our coaching skills, our communication skills, and we use a lot of analogies, we use a lot of imaginary sort of pictures, but we very much use people's own vocabulary.
Yeah.
So instance, a horse might be going around the arena and I go, yeah, that's really good. That's what you want. I need it to feel like that. I want it to look like that. You tell me what it feels like. You tell me what it looks like to you.
Yeah.
You know, what can you see? What can you feel? And people will describe things in all sorts of imaginative and strange ways that wouldn't necessarily make sense to another person, but so long as it makes sense to them, I can then use their vocabulary as a trigger to get the requirement in their body to get the horse to do what they need the horse to do. So I use all sorts of very strange language that if anybody else was listening to, they'd be going, what's she on about?
Cool. We've got a few questions coming in, Helen, and we've got probably less than 10 minutes to go, so
Okay.
let's go for the next one. So Kath says, if you engage your core, does it mean you are automatically sitting in the correct position, ever so slightly behind the vertical, or are the two things independent of each other?
Okay, that is a really good question. Engaging your core is part of it, but being upright is another part of it. So I'm going to risk doing this in front of the camera because I don't know whether you can actually see me. You see me standing up, put it a bit further away. Okay.
Yep.
So here I'm saying, what I'm going to do is put my feet slightly apart, which you can't see. Sorry. You might be able to now. Yeah, see my feet slightly apart. But I'm going to stand sideways. Okay. Apologies to everybody for having to look at my body. Okay. So I've got my knees, and here I've got my hips underneath my shoulder. Can everybody see that? Maybe, maybe not. Okay. Now I can engage my core in that position and it will help to keep me upright. I'm balanced over my feet. A lot of people will sit too heavy and then they lose the balance backwards. Or if they lean too far forward, they lose the balance forwards. So you need to be balanced over your feet.
Cool.
And how helpful that was. Okay, so one of the good ways to is if you can get somebody to do a little short video, a minute is plenty, so that they're looking at you side on. Like you were lunging somebody, you could see them side on. And then if you look at that little video and imagine that you could take the horse out from underneath the rider needs to land on their feet on the arena and stay upright. Okay, they'd have their knees, could stay upright. A lot of riders will either tip forward and would land on their knees or their nose, or they land backwards and land heavy on their bum. So your first job is to be balanced in that upright way. The second one, so that's your back front balance. The second balance is engage your core. That's your up down balance. That helps keep you safe, secure, solid, torso strong, but arms and lower legs relaxed. And then we haven't talked much about the asymmetry, but that's things like making sure that you're level in your seat bones and not tipped one way or the other, not lifting a shoulder up or something like that, or leaning off to one side.
Thanks, Helen.
So yeah, it's no good if you're leaning back. Yeah, you can engage your core, but you're out of balance, so you need to be balanced before you add the core muscles.
Jane says, Helen, love what you're saying. I love sitting on my exercise ball to keep me more mobile. Do you agree?
Really, yeah, definitely. An exercise ball is, even if you end up not sitting in it quite in an on horse position, it's a fantastic way of developing your core muscles, because the ball does not hold you up as a horse does. The horse will hold you up however you sit. It would prefer it if you sat balanced, but it will still function with you on top of not balanced. A physio ball, a yoga ball, balance ball does not hold you up.
That's very reassuring. That's very reassuring, Helen. That's me who put that message in. I'm watching you now, sat on my ball, and I spent.
Oh, brilliant!
Yes.
So who's this I'm talking to?
This is Jane Rothwell.
Okay.
Yeah. So I spend. I'll just put a picture up if you want to see me. I don't know whether you can. Never done this before. There you are. So yeah, and when I used to work, believe it or not, I used to sit in my surgery sat on an exercise ball. So and I brought it home with me. I've worn 2 out. I'm on my 3rd now.
Fab.
And yes,
That's
I spent a
brilliant.
lot of time on it. And so
Something
I am
I've just-
reassured to hear you say that, because sometimes you just wonder whether, you know, and ladies of a certain age, anything to keep the body moving is very much appreciated.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, physio balls are great. And in terms of it being, oh, crikey, another thing to fit in, exactly as you said, do it sitting at your desk, do it sitting at the dining table, do it on the phone, you know, whatever. Sit on your physio ball and balance, or just sit on it. You know,
Yeah.
you don't actually try and get your feet off the floor. I've just started doing a few little exercises with some of my clients because I'm not able to go and see them at the moment. So it's just keeping ourselves going through the winter. And yeah.
Thanks for that.
Brilliant. Thanks, Helen. Now we've got a few more questions and we are running out of
Gosh, it
time.
looks like there's loads of
So
questions.
before we run out of time, what I do want to, there's quite a few, and there's a suggestion. Could you suggest some exercises to do at home? What I'm thinking of, I haven't got everybody's details because this is an open invitation to everyone. I guess if all of you could reply to me and say, would you be interested in more sessions with Helen? I think I know the answer is going to be yes. And I'll have a word with Helen as whether or not we can set up a regular club. It might cost, because I think, you know, we're very honoured that Helen's given up her time for nothing tonight. But if people want a regular club to get more exercises and things that they can do, especially during the continued lockdown, then ping me a message across on my website or email or Messenger, wherever you can.
I'd love to do that because there's so many things you can do without going near a horse to really work on your horse skills. In fact, I've just seen somebody's question, which I think is a really, really important question to ask ourselves. Jerry says, having corrected asymmetry, how can it be maintained without thinking about it all the time? And that would be the same question if people are worried of learning to sit upright or engage their core muscles. They're like, that's why we call it ride with your mind, because it's altering the way this little brain thing up here notices it. And at first you have to do body check, literally that often. But you then, the more you check, notice, oh yeah, still got it. Oops, lost it. Oh, got it. Yeah, still got it. You end up, it becomes subconscious.
Yeah.
And then you've got brain space for something else.
Oh, I love subconscious, unconscious, Helen. Don't get me started.
Yeah, so that, I hope that answers Jerry's question, and that would also be a very relevant question for everybody. So I ride out and I have a body checklist. I don't think about it all the time because sometimes I like to look at the view, but I keep coming back to it. My body checklist will be to do with, am I upright? Am I using my core? And am I sorting my asymmetry? But there's a really great analogy of layers of an onion. So you work with the outer layer, and then that gets sorted, and you work deeper in and deeper in and deeper in.
Oh.
So I've been riding this way for 30 years and I'm still working on things, but different things to the ones I started with.
Fab. We've got 2 minutes left, so I don't want Zoom to cut us off because it'll just cut it dead. So I've got all the questions recorded in the chat, so I can share those with Helen.
Brilliant.
And she can come into, I'll say into Your Horse is Your Mirror group on Facebook. But whether you're in Ready Steady Trek or Your Horse is Your Mirror, ping me a message. I've got lots of yes please. So we're going to be doing this, I think, Helen. You and I will.
Great, that sounds good.
And
I mean, if you're into long distance riding and trek and you're riding 20k, 30k, 40k, and you're out of balance, you're really going to seriously affect your horse's ability to stay long-term sound and fit during the actual ride.
Oh, I've muted you by Helen. Helen, I muted you by mistake.
Yeah, if you're riding long distance, it's even more important that you maintain, you know, a good balance.
Right,
because
less than 1 minute to go.
tired.
So I just want to say thank you, Helen. Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you everybody for coming. That's great.
As usual. You're going to get lots of thank yous for everyone. I can see them coming in on the messages. So thank you everybody for supporting Helen. And watch this space. We'll come back with some more exciting stuff for you. Thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Helen. Thank you, Julia.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.